what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, Andrew jacked 2 weeks out from his pro debut at the Texas Pro, where he's looking pretty insane. This post from Milo Sarshev at the Dragon's Lair of Andrew Jack going through some poses. He's really impressive at this point in his prep. The thing that impresses me most about Andrew is the roundness that he has throughout his shoulders, his arms, and his chest. His muscle bellies in those areas are just uniquely round, and they really make him stand out. And I think the big shoulders in particular, it's something that really helps with his structure. He's much taller than the average IFBB pro. He's got a very different physique than the average pro bodybuilder. He's very tall, and a tall bodybuilder could be very lanky, and they could look very narrow because of that height. But I think the thing that Andrew jacked has working for him here is those crazy delts, the crazy upper body width. He looks good in the back shots from a width standpoint. When we first saw him start competing, the main thing that I wanted to see him bring up was his legs. I really think he's brought up his legs significantly since the first time that we've seen him on stage. He's now working with George Farah and Flex Wheeler in his preparation for this pro debut, and it doesn't really get much better than that. And I just like that he brings something really different to the stage. And like I said, we're seeing a lot of really fun stories like this with Michael Krizo, Good Vito, Andrew Jack. These guys that have become very popular and made a name for themselves on social media are now following through with their pro careers. They're making their pro debuts. They're joining the IFBB. They're doing these things where they could have a real shot at getting to the Olympia. And do I think Andrew Jack has a shot at winning the Texas Pro? I do think he has a shot. I think the main thing that he needs to improve on from his Arnold Classic Amateur win where he turned pro is conditioning. I think if he comes in really good conditioning, and so far at 2 weeks out, he looks pretty good here from a conditioning standpoint. But it's got to be much, much better than it looked at the Arnold Amateur. Could he win the Texas Pro? Yes, and that would mean he goes to the Olympia. And I feel like we could have some really, really fun storylines going into the Olympia with a lot of fresh names, fresh faces, a lot of wild cards in that lineup. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Andrew Jack's physique and his chances at winning or doing well at the Texas Pro and Men's Open. Now, next up in the news, Hassan Mostafa officially announces that he's pulling out of the Arnold Classic UK. He responded to a question on a Q&A on his Instagram story where they asked him, how's your Arnold Classic prep going? And he says, not doing it, unfortunately, just moved to Canada and was advised not to travel until I get the PR card, which will take several months. So it looks like at this point, after his back-to-back pro victories, he's focusing on exclusively the Olympia, which I think means everybody in that Arnold Classic UK lineup just breathed a very big sigh of relief, because I think obviously Hassan was the favorite to win that show based on how well he's done in the competitive season so far. Now, next up in the news, I found this to be very interesting, and I saw this on Buys and Tries Instagram. Kamal El Gargni, we know that he's doing the Open division in the Tampa Pro in just a couple weeks. He's a former 212 Mr. Olympia champion, top 3 Mr. Olympia placer in 212. Interestingly enough, he says he's not doing the Open Olympia. He's not trying to do the Tampa Pro to qualify for Open, but he's going to be doing the 212 Olympia in December, regardless of the outcome of his Open debut in Tampa. He says, I'm going to get my title back in Vegas in 212. Doing the Open is just for me. This is going to be my last year 100%. Next year, if the Masters is back with good prize money, I'll jump into that for one more year, and then I'm done. Which I think is a wise move for Kamal. Again, in the last video I mentioned Kamal is 50 years old. It's really not typical that you see a bodybuilder compete at that age, unless, of course, you're Dexter Jackson. But I think that does give him a pretty interesting shot at getting his title back, especially considering it seems like Derek Lunsford, who won last year, is heavily interested in competing in the Open Olympia. Seems like Sean Clarita, who won in 2020, is also interested and qualified for the Open Olympia. If those two guys are gone, those are the only two guys that beat Kamal last year, it would stand to reason that Kamal has a strong shot at earning his title back this year in 2022. So, best of luck to Kamal at the Tampa Pro, where he's going to have to show down with the likes of Akeem Williams. Now, next up in the news, Fabian Rabia, the classic physique competitor that switched to men's open bodybuilding at the Puerto Rico Pro. He was Olympia qualified at one point. He just announced on his Instagram story today that he will be retiring entirely from the world of bodybuilding. He says, I decided to retire from the world of bodybuilding. I will no longer get on stage. I'm chasing some dreams that I've dragged on since my childhood, and I want to remain firm in those desires. You can take my time to think about it, and this was my decision. Thank you for the support that you've given me since the beginning as a bodybuilder. So I thought that was a story certainly worth including in this video, because he's been a guy that, he's been a big storyline. He's had a lot of big rivalries. He's talked a lot of trash with a lot of the top guys in classic physique. He has kind of proven he's Olympia worthy. He Olympia qualified, but he never competed at the Olympia. And he made a pretty big switch from classic to open bodybuilding. So I wish Fabian the best in his retirement. Now, next up in the news, I wanted to take a minute to announce that we officially launched a merchandise line for the channel. Our Shopify page is live today. It's something that I was thinking about doing for a long time. A lot of people always ask me about when new merch is coming out because all I've really done is the basic Nick Strength and Power, just those words and a barbell. So for this one, we actually tried really hard to come up with some cool designs based on like an outdoorsman type theme, something that actually I would wear. Very Bass Pro Shop themed, Cabela's themed. And we've got the Grizzly Bear t-shirt, which is really cool. It's based on a grizzly bear that I've got in my living room. If you guys didn't know, I've got a taxidermied Alaskan grizzly in my living room, so that's what that design was based off of. And I really put in some effort into these designs, and I'm really not a huge fan of running a bunch of ads for other companies on my channel. So if you guys want to support the channel, you don't want to see a bunch of random ads from supplement companies or whatever, this is the best way to do it. Go to the Shopify, wear the shirt, and rep the channel. All that money goes directly to supporting the channel, and it means less ads that you have to watch. But this is just something that I thought would be cool. They're designs that I thought was cool. It was a theme that I thought was cool. It's stuff that I would actually wear. And so many people ask me about merch, and all I've really ever done is that basic barbell design. So I try to put some effort into these for you guys. If you don't want to buy a shirt or you can't afford a shirt, totally fine. You can support the channel by just clicking that like button or clicking subscribe. But this is just another way to do it, to kind of limit the number of ads or sponsors that I'd have to run on this channel, and we can just do it all ourselves. So click the link in the description box below if you guys want to go check out those shirts. And if not, just click that like button. Now, next up in the news, Iain Vaillant versus Antoine Vaillant. Now, obviously, in yesterday's video, we talked a lot about Iain versus Blessing in the comment section of one of Antoine's posts. But people are also noticing there's a lot of seemingly animosity between Antoine and Iain stemming from that post. There was a reply on that post. So if you guys didn't see, the actual post that Antoine posted was a back double bicep shot where he said, "What you guys think?" And I think that was a very strong, probably the strongest photo and pose of Antoine at that Vancouver Pro versus Iain Vaillant. And pretty much every bodybuilder has done this. They've cherry-picked a picture that they look the best in against a guy that maybe they lost to. Nothing wrong with that. It makes things very interesting. So Iain responded, and he posted his own post, and he said 2 can play at that game in response to Antoine. And he said, in this one, 5 pictures instead of just 1. And he shows a bunch of stage shots of the call-out of him and Antoine at the Vancouver Pro, different lighting, different camera, where obviously Iain looks pretty good in those pictures. So that would suggest that maybe Iain was a little bit salty about Antoine's post. And there was a comment from Iain in that comment section about Antoine, and in the beginning he's talking about Blessing. He says, "He's insufferable, but that's how mediocre bodybuilders stay relevant, by being the loudest guy in the room. Look, these pictures look good for Antoine, but at the end of the day, I come 7th at the Olympia, 2nd at the Arnold, haven't lost a regular pro show in 3 years, and these guys all end up last call out, because pictures isn't reality. It's a fantasy world where you're a better bodybuilder than you really are. Come December, we all end up back in our places, and that's me fighting for top 6, and these guys battling it out in the 4th call-out. We are not the same." He's talking about both Antoine and Blessing in this post, and it seems like there's a little bit of bitterness towards Antoine in that comment. And Antoine, the thing I love about Antoine is he never really takes any of this too seriously. His kind of response was he posted, I'm assuming this was his indirect response because he had that comment about the calves on that post. He posted a bunch of stories flexing his calves, which I would imagine is his response to Iain, because one of the main criticisms of Iain throughout his career has been his lack of calves. So do I think there's any real bad blood here? No. Do I think any of this really matters at the end of the day? No. The placings are going to be what they end up being regardless at the Olympia. Do I think this makes things a little bit more interesting and more exciting? Yes. Do I think at the end of the day this is a net positive for bodybuilding? Yes. No one's taking it too personal. Nobody's taking it too far. Nobody's getting weird with it. It's just a lot of good rivalry. But of course, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think rivalries like this online and this kind of banter is good or bad for the sport? Do you think it's too serious? Do you think it's not? And, where do you think the sport would be without banter like this? I guess is a better question, because so many people get mad on either side of the argument. They want to support their favorite bodybuilder, and they get mad that the comments are even being made. But would bodybuilding be nearly as exciting without this extra layer, this extra dynamic of real beef between the guys? I honestly don't think it would be. There needs to be storylines. And the final story that I have for you guys today, we do have some updates from Big Ramy. It's always kind of newsworthy when we get an update from a current reigning Mr. Olympia that we typically don't get a lot of updates from. And we don't really get to see too much of from their training, from their posing, whatever. He posted an arm workout yesterday, so we got to kind of see him training arms. And today he posted some leg training footage, so a little bit more than he usually posts, posting back-to-back days. But it made me kind of think, I mean, Ramy is the reigning Mr. Olympia from 2021. And since he won, really the only point that we've talked about Ramy in the year following his win, or the only thing that he's really done something newsworthy, was the fact that he was not showing up to events. And I was thinking about the fact today when I was about to make this video that I was going to include a story of him just training legs, fully dressed, in a news video, because that for Ramy is newsworthy because he posts so little. So I want to revisit the question because this is a very divided issue. A lot of people think Ramy doesn't need to post anything, shouldn't post anything. If he doesn't want to post, if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to. And I can see that perspective. But just think about the past year of Ramy being the reigning Mr. Olympia champ and the stories that we've had of Ramy. Are you satisfied with that? Or do you want your current reigning Mr. Olympia to be at more events, to be more active on social media? It doesn't have to be like a storyline of him having beef with somebody or drama, but just from the standpoint of, would you like to meet Ramy at an event here in the States? Would you like to see more training, more posing, more interviews, just more from Ramy in general? Let me know in the comment section down below. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. Again, I want to remind you guys the new merch collection is live on Shopify. There's a link in the description box below if you guys want to check it out. It is the best way to support the channel directly right now. As always, like the video if you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up. That helps out a lot too. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.
Dancing in the good light, everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight, and everybody's dancing in the good